Hey guys, it's Mickey again. I just wanted to give a quick intro to this video coming up. In this interview, I meet with Jessica Fiveash, and she's starting an international project called AIM. So that stands for Academic Integrity Movement. And it is designed for parents to get involved in fighting against critical race theory in the school system, in the public school system. So this woman is such a warrior, and I'm so proud of her because she's basically starting a boots on the ground grassroots type initiative to help parents like you and me. I know I have two kiddos. I've got one who's 11 and another who's 13, so sixth and eighth grade. And now that many of us as parents have woken up and realized just how powerful these unions are at influencing our children and dividing them based on race, sex, gender, etc. It's time for us to stand up and fight. And so she's started an initiative or a movement that helps give us the tools that we need to know how to get involved locally. And she's kind of teaching us what's working and what's not working. Now, this is what's really neat about Jessica is she comes from both sides of the fence. She's kind of a walk away type of girl. She started out as a sixth grade teacher and was groomed into the unions. And, because they recruit and they give all these incentives and stuff like that. And then when she realized kind of with 2020 vision, what they were doing and how they were indoctrinating our kids, guys, this isn't their first rodeo. They know that to get to us, they have to get to our kids. And so she started to go up against the unions in these committee meetings and stuff like that. And she's faced a lot of criticism and a lot of resistance. But I think she's such an incredible warrior. And I think you guys should listen through this if you want to make a difference in your local chapter or your local school system. And I highly recommend that you reach out to her if you have any questions or if you need advice, and that you check out her website. So, all right, guys, here we go. Hey guys, it's Mickey. How you doing? I've got with me today Jessica Fiveash. She has started a new organization called Academic Integrity Movement, and she is trying to help with a boots on the ground type organization to help parents and enable them to take action in their schools, their local communities, because we are learning just how much control some of these unions have and how hard they're pushing critical race theory. And so she's here with us today because she's literally started this organization on her own. She's the executive director and founder, and she's been working really hard in Utah, correct? Tell us a little bit about you, what got you started in this, and kind of your background, and then give us a little heads up on your organization.
Okay, well, so let me see what notes I even have. Okay, well, I guess I'll say I'm a former teacher. I taught third through sixth, mostly sixth grade, and I'm a mother of three, two still in school. And as a teacher, if you know what NEA is, National Education Association, the union, I was in the UEA, the Utah Education Association, and I ended up ultimately as vice president of the Weber Education Association, as well as I sat on at least one committee at the state level, and simultaneously they groom you as a new teacher onboarding. So I hadn't thought about any of this except for getting protection as a teacher. That's what they tell you it's for. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. But what ended up happening was they got me, and this is coming from me, a Rush Limbaugh baby. I was born, I was never exposed to anything liberal. But what ended up happening was the verbiage used, the friends and the relationships and the fun that happens through all these professional developments in the union. They treat you, we go to resorts. They make you feel so important. They were doing all this great work, and you really start to believe you are. And so I ended up getting pretty far up into that. I was even looking at running for president of the state and even going forward to national. At the same time, my mind's starting to go into this trauma response because of the trainings we were given. It was all about acknowledging and confronting trauma. And that's a whole other story of how the critical race theory goes into the classroom. But at the same time, I was elected as the chair over the education caucus for the Utah State Democrat Party. So my co-chair happened to be a full-time lobbyist for none other than the union.
So they recognized right from the beginning that you were kind of a go-getter. They were giving you incentives. They were giving you points.
I was at hotels. I was signed. Yeah. Which it's been about a couple years now, and looking back, I'm not sure at what level people are knowingly doing this to others, or are they also being used? I don't want to say a tool, but that's really what I feel like now. Looking back, it's just like how somebody as staunchly conservative as I was, how could they have turned within 3 or 4 years me into an almost militant liberal activist, which carries it into the classroom. Right. And this is a normal route. So what happened was I left teaching. I developed fibromyalgia, and I truly believe God was telling me, you're going the wrong way. It got so bad and I felt like I needed to go that way because I'd never exposed myself to the left, just anybody like that. And I needed to understand it. So in the meantime, they're always talking about their trauma or, anything about healing. So I actually started doing that and healing on my own. Like, okay, I don't want to be hurting my inner child my whole life. So let's do it. But it's a mindset they get stuck in. It's a victim mindset. And I'm not that person that just sits there. I want to keep going. And so ultimately, I left. I would say when Joe Biden got nominated for the presidential ticket for the Dems, it was right when the lockdown was happening, if you remember that. It was right about the same. And when I've been around long enough now to see what they've been doing. And when I saw they put Biden in place, I said, that's it. That's it. I wasn't teaching anymore, but I was leading. I was on several state committees and I was leading things. And I said, that's it. At that point, I denounced everything. I denounced the party. I denounced my positions and left. And the threats started.
Oh, wow.
My family was threatened. Black Lives Matter Utah, one of their members, which that's still going on. They spread across the state that my family was open game. We've had to put up security cameras. And then ultimately in October of last year, we woke up to someone in our yard taking pictures of my house. So because, let's just put it this way, they trained me really well. Okay. I was mentored by some of the representatives at Congress here. I would have called them my mentors. And I'm now the people I used to present to the committees with, I'm now speaking against because they trained me, and the left is very good at this type of stuff. And I know I would like to teach others how to play this game and win, or at least have a seat at the table for parents, because the parents are not there. There's no parents. There's no voices for our kids without other special interests involved at all.
So tell me about the academic integrity movement then. Tell me about the reason for starting the initiative and all that.
Okay. So that was about 18 months ago was when I woke up. I kind of regrouped, started a podcast so I could at least get my voice out without 1,000 demeaning, threatening comments. So, just a place for me to say something. And then I kind of went off to Twitter for a while undercover to see if there's anyone like me out there, that walk away movement thing that happened with Straka. And so I found several people from Utah, and we all became kind of tight because we'd all done the same thing, and we had nobody. I lost every support I had in the state, and it was me and God, and that's all I can really say. And that's a good place to be, actually. Ultimately, one of the people I met through that journey on Twitter ended up in, I don't know if everyone has seen this, but it went national. There was the school districts here in Utah have started stopping parents' voices. This specific event was at Granite School District board meeting, and that's what made me go, okay, I'm back in the game. And that was just in May. Okay, so this particular meeting that I just happened to know someone involved in was shared to one of my private groups, and it was the Granite School District meeting. And what has happened that day was it was standing room only, and that was about the mask issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they had organized everyone that could to come because they wanted to show that the parents were just done. The data wasn't there. Listen to the parents. We're the ones that are supposed to be in charge. So what happened was they let 3 speakers speak. The first one was a former colleague of mine who's now a senator. So she used to be a teacher, then state school board, now senator. So she was one. Second one was a UEA director, the union.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have kids in the school. She called herself a patron.
Mm-hmm.
And one parent who was not given a heads up that she was actually going to be on the agenda. She had no notes, nothing. We have on record that they said they had contacted her and she was not contacted.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it. After the one parent, that was it. And it turned into some chaotic, the parents weren't having it. They weren't having it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how I got involved, because when I saw that video, I said, I know those ladies. I used to work with those two. They're not parents.
Mm-hmm.
How could they not afford to allow more than one person to speak on behalf of just students, you know? And so you can contrast. That's what got me back into it. I said, let's organize. We all had a dinner with like 30, 40 of us, and just, you know, I took education. Somebody else took another part. We're all, you know,
Mm-hmm.
doing this. But I realized I needed a brand to be able to actually do this. So Academic Integrity Movement is what we came up with. And if you look, it's AIM.
Yeah.
AIM. So, and if you move it around, it's I am.
I love it.
Cool. So
I am who is, who was, always will be.
Yep. Yep.
So, okay. So sorry to cut you off. I'm very curious because I don't know. Now I'm a parent too, 2 kiddos, one in 6th grade, one in 8th grade. Today was their first day in school. And I'm really curious about, what would you say in a nutshell, what is critical race theory, and what would you say are the biggest problems with it?
It's the new, so these groups that push the agendas, it goes past far above NEA. It's a globalist initiative basically. But what it does is, it used to be called, do you remember social justice warriors? Do you remember that term where people were SJWs? Okay, that has now evolved since George Floyd into critical race theory. It's the same thing, but now instead of talking about diversity and inclusion and equity, they're now bringing in race into the actual conversation. Privilege walks are part of this. So critical race theory as an elective in college would be basically talking about the disparities that happened, you know, and really digging into the context of back in these historical times, because the kids are old enough to understand and really want to learn and understand that. But what's happening is it's not in the curriculum, it's not sanctioned. Teachers have the freedom to go on to, let's say, teacherpayteacher.com or any of these personal sourced things like an Etsy for teachers, okay? And buy whatever they want. So let's say a reading teacher wants to bring in some literature. If she's one of these people that are highly pushing this stuff, she's going to choose not a classic. She's going to look for anyone she can that was a person of color that wrote it, so that her kids could read something that a person of color wrote, which the argument against CRT is not about color. It's about discounting certain groups. I have a personal story where a friend of mine, her son was in 7th grade and went to history class. She held up the book and she said, "We're not using this year. This was written," and she made them guess what color the authors were by their names. And she said, "They sound like 2 old white guys, don't they?" She goes, "We're not using this." And that's when I said, what if those 2 white guys were Einstein and Tesla? Like, this is so much bigger than a skin color. It's about character. And like I said, I come from Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. King rings in my ear. Like, I grew up with that all over the place. that's not what he wanted. We're not meeting the mark anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Kids too young to understand life itself or life their own self
Mm-hmm.
don't need the baggage of people who haven't healed yet from things that happened generations before. And that's in a nutshell what CRT is as it's happening in class. It's getting people to discuss their and trauma involves, it comes into trauma and everything, but teachers tend to start leading group therapy sessions in class during morning meetings or during, but first of all, they're not licensed to do that. There's no data being collected, so they really aren't supposed to do anything that's not based by facts and data, right? Like that's not professional.
Mm-hmm.
And counselors possibly, but the fact is they've made a second set of learning standards. You've got your curriculum, like your Common Core, but now they're using these socio-emotional learning standards. That's how they squeeze in the CRT, critical race theory, which ultimately brings up race in such a way and in such an early age of life where kids, and this is what we wanted to talk about right here, when kids start to notice their skin color when they would not have, they wouldn't have, they would have known who's cool, who's not cool. It's not about color.
Yeah.
And first of all, kids are mean. I still have curly hair, but I used to get called Afro, or like people get called overweight. It doesn't matter. They will pick on you for anything. So we've got to make all kids understand that kids are mean. Don't be a mean child. But it shouldn't be taught from these morality lessons are not the teacher's job. And they teach it through every angle. They make it up in math problems. They teach Marxist type of lessons and choose which scenario is better. And it makes the Marxist side look good because that gives everyone something when that person never learned to play the game or like even tried. It's just so methodical. So what I wanted to say about these, when it happens in the classroom, you've got critical race theory. Teachers are told to make a safe space. I'm sure you've heard a safe space before with that verbiage on the left. So they tell you at these trainings that this is a safe space, just like your classroom should be. And we want you to have pride flags and Black Lives Matter flags and all these different flags, right? But there's not, I find it interesting. You can't talk about white skin or Christian or anything like that. So what's happening, and this is big, and you notice, you'll already know. What do the white kids want to do? Don't they want to feel special with a flag on the wall? They choose LGBTQ. Which brings in, and that's confusing because a lot of these kids aren't.
Well, and there's an undertone of guilt too, like you are white, therefore you have white privilege and you aren't, you think you're higher than or better than. Well, that's a projection too. That's not even real. And I mean,
we're dealing with mental illness is what we're dealing with. The people pushing this seem to have some sort of inner healing that they have not pushed through because once they do, they don't think that way.
Well, I think at the higher level, they're just pushing division, and in order to create division, you have to separate, right? You have to separate by skin color or, sexual preference.
However,
it is interesting because it goes so against everything that Martin Luther King's dream was about. I have a dream that someday we would be judged by the color, not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And I remember there was such a push, even my kids in second, third grade learning about Martin Luther King and that there's a national holiday and all this stuff. But, it seems like it's shifted really rapidly in the last 20 years. Would you say that, like in the last maybe 15 years, as they started pushing division?
That's what I was thinking. It's probably been at least, I said a decade and a half recently. That's about right. About 15 years.
Yeah. I watched a whole documentary once on this mom, and her kids were in a school, like in a small town in Colorado. And they rolled in this critical race theory thick. I mean, hard and fast, to where her daughter was happy one year. And then the next year she's coming home feeling bullied every day because she's trying to fight against the division. I don't believe I'm a white supremacist because I'm white. That was her only belief. Because she was a very intelligent, young, critically thinking girl. And she, got bullied by the kids. The teachers were bullying her in front of the kids. So she was getting, attacked by her peers. She then they literally brought in a boy to start stalking her. It got all the way to the point where the mom had to move out of the town because all the school board, the principals, everyone was against her daughter for speaking out.
Yes. We have one state school board here. I'm going to name her personally, Natalie Klein. She's the only one outwardly. There's a couple that hold these values, but she is putting her name on the line, and people wish she would just go away. She gets threats. And she's the only one on our state school board that speaks out. But this is local. This is state. It seems that the legislature wants to wash their hands and put it to the boards, the state offices, because they don't want to touch this.
Right.
Because they know how much. But the thing is, they're creating so much extra time and effort to do these things when it doesn't need to be done. We need to be focusing on how to develop an individual child who knows how to live on their own or knows how to make something of themselves, and study all races of how, basically there's an ideology in that same CRT thought of almost hatred for America. And we really need to bring, and I'm not saying like worship America, but we need to bring this is, even though there was some backhanded stuff, this is the greatest experiment that ever kind of worked. And it's a blueprint for what we can do. The Constitution needs to be known and how simple things should be. And everybody should have rights. And there's not privilege. You can be born with a silver spoon in your mouth, but we all have an onus on ourselves to do something. And it's getting to where now they've gotten to where they're at our kids' minds to think we need to listen to the government to know what to do to live.
Right. I think it's also just important to say this is not their first rodeo. They know that to get to, to create wars, they have to get to the kids. They have to divide the kids. They have to come up with, under an undercurrent of hatred.
Yes.
And so I think now that the parents
barriers.
Sorry about that. What was that?
No, go ahead. I was just saying they treat parents as barriers. Yeah.
Yes. So parents are being treated as barriers, and we're trying to figure out how, now that the parents are waking up to this and we understand there's this control system in place, what is the solution? How do we get involved, and in what way? And, I know this is a multi-pronged answer, but what's the most obvious, and what are you trying to empower parents to do in order to make change?
Okay. There's a few things. First, I'll just give you the option. You can either keep your kids there and fight it while your kids are there, and I'll explain how to fight that while you're there, or pull your kids out. And we're building, and I can give resources of other people building databases of alternate school choices where you can join a pod school where people join together and pay for a teacher. We've got an organization we work with that vets teachers. They have the system access to see if a teacher's been flagged and why. So you are not going to get someone that's been fired for some sort of weird thing coming to teach your kid. They're vetting these people. They know the background checks. You can homeschool, but that becomes another option. The money should follow the student. Okay. In Utah, the money follows your student to the public school or charter. There's no other option. If you pull out to homeschool, you don't get any sort of relief, and that needs to change. So that's one of the prongs where we're working on that. But if I feel like whoever hears this, any of these ideas, they can take and run because they're all part of it. But we need legislation to allow the money to actually follow the kids. So the parents would have money to pay for the curriculum they need.
Yeah.
Or to pay for a teacher.
So, all right. So I know that Trump has definitely pushed school choice, and that's an initiative to almost create an open market or free market for parents.
Privatization, yeah.
Is this critical race theory being pushed hard into the charter and the private sector, or is it just in the public education? Because I know a lot of parents don't have the time or the resources to homeschool. I know I don't.
Right, right. And that's why you can find these pods or these micro schools where it's not really homeschooling, but I don't believe it gets the funding you would get to put your kid in a charter school.
Mhm.
But these curriculums that we're finding and putting online are not CRT related. One of them's actual classical education, like old school classical. They read the classics, they teach classically. That's what you probably like. A lot of parents would like. They've got curriculum to do yourself, or they've got teachers and options.
Mhm.
You could, I know Ron Paul actually just put out a K-5 free curriculum.
Mhm.
We're hoping he does more, but that's not going to be CRT. But there's a lot of options for curriculum, and we can definitely help. If anyone wants to come, contact us, and I'm sure you'll put that up later, but we can definitely help connect and find the person in your state or whatever.
So I think my first thought was, so if, it's kind of like there was that exodus from Facebook, right? Which leaves almost an echo chamber of the left, or those that don't, or maybe the people aren't aware of the deeper issue. So
Right.
for those that want to stay and fight, obviously fight the system and organize, that's a solution. But I do think having an open market or free market for schools teaches the schools that, hey, we're not going to take this anymore, and you're going to lose your funding because we're going to leave. So 50% of the people took their kids to a different type of educational system. The old system has to adjust.
Right. And I've approached them personally and told them that. I said, how many are you going to need to lose to actually listen?
Yeah.
Money talks. And we're actually looking for teachers. We know teachers are frustrated. If you're a teacher, contact us. We will get you students that will pay for you to teach. That, public ed is not charter. That's not the only option.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one other thing on that one. Hold on, let me see. School funding, school choice.
I think you talked about infiltrating, the actual system itself,
Yes.
right? You talked about the tiers of, you've got the parents at the bottom tier of the triangle, but you've also got people that can infiltrate the board and or these unions.
There's whistleblower teachers who are in unions and are letting information out. They are worried that they're going to lose their jobs or anything, because you have to prove that you're good at doing this sort of double speak trickery just to keep a job, basically. But we do have people in there. There are other options. There's the American Educators Association. That's one. That's the only one that I actually can recommend right now for union wise. But as far as going within the system, if you decide to pull your kids, first of all, do it before October 1st. That is count day for the whole nation. So whoever's on a roster of any school, start a business October 1, the money goes to the school. Okay. So if you choose during Christmas to do it, the school doesn't care. Okay. They've got your money. That's why they pre-register in May or so and ask if your kid's coming back, because then they start to plan. So I know a lot of people are really trying to stick it to them and saying, yes, my kid will be back, and then not, just to kind of jerk them around. But, that's one option. But what you can do is find out, you can either do state or local, but go to your district board meeting. There's always a public comment. So sign up, email, however you need to, because some are run differently. You need to find out how they take public comments. Check the agenda. Even if it's not focused on the agenda, go anyway. Get your friends to fill the room up. Moms have mom friends. We're done. We're banding together. I'm sure you've noticed this. We're done. I went to regarding masks, this is not about CRT, but it's the same type of thing about how you do things. Yesterday, I went to the Salt Lake County Council meeting where their health department commissioner was going to speak about what they were going to allow our kids to do next year, whether, And so the guy that was leading it, he said on the council, he had never seen that many people in there in his life. And he was going to extend the meeting as long as it took to hear everyone. Now, Can you
So
see
wait
a
a minute, so
difference
these were
between that?
anti-maskers? I just want to make sure these were anti-maskers that showed up?
All parents brought kids to speak for themselves. One
Awesome.
kid got up and didn't even ask the mom, just went and got in line. She was like 8 and told her whole story. Let me breathe. I can't even see my teacher anymore. Like speech, people with kids with speech problems and speech, they can't see how to form words. Um, the overwhelming majority that I've seen both on state level here in Utah and starting with county, it's like if they listen to their constituents, it's over.
Yeah.
So that's the question now. What are they going to do? Because you've just got to get groups together, make a plan to go to these school district meetings, go online and find your legislators. So your district, your area legislators, got a senator and a representative. Call, get to know these people. If you want to work the top down, get in touch with me and I'll even walk you through it. I don't mind. That's how, I mean, I'm very passionate about helping do this.
And we'll share your website below, just so everyone knows. Yeah.
I would ultimately like to see the Department of Education either eradicated, like dissolved, or restructured to work for us, because things have gone too far. There's no one watching the hen house, and that's what happened when I saw that's what was going on. That's why I created this, because there's people teaching parents, like I said, but there's no one approaching the bench, so to speak, with clout.
So talk about the meeting minutes for us really quick. So it works out that you have, as a speaker, you have 3 minutes, but you can hand over your minutes to a primary speaker.
Oh, yeah.
So you can get a group of 10 people, for example, and all of you can donate your 3 minutes to the speaker that you elect, and then that person can go speak for 30 minutes, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of okay. It depends. So we called. So basically, the state school board published a rule July 1st. It was supposed to be anti-CRT. It was actually how to do CRT, and then Section 5 was a nullification clause that made the whole thing moot. So we called them out on it, gave them a version we wrote ourselves as the AIM board, and we called the hearing. We requested it. It wasn't going to happen. You have 15 days to request. So it was us and the union, which is hilarious, because I'm like, let's do this. Okay. I used to present with them there. Yeah. Let's do this. Now, news hit I've made a lot of enemies because I started getting out against things. So news hit, they did a news piece on our 2 groups calling this. And someone on the left organized 3 groups to be added to the agenda because I was on there. And the 3 groups it was almost embarrassing. I don't know what hearing they thought they were there for. They did not speak to the rule, which is what we were there for. They just quoted people like Malcolm X and Dr. King and tried to make people cry. The whole state board shut down, just disengaged, because like I said, they don't deal with emotions like that. They want to hear facts. They don't have time to waste like that.
Right.
So that's one way. They get on the agenda, and it took us down to 10 minutes. Now, they did say public comment after that, but what they said in the rules was you may not, what do they call it? Waive your time? So like if I get up to the mic, I'm like, oh, just kidding. I'd really like to let her have my time. Yeah. They literally specified that will not happen. So each person had 2 minutes after our big thing. But on a normal meeting, just regular meeting, you don't get to go and sit and do that presentation. That was different. That was a hearing that we actually requested. But the monthly meetings, you can go sign up, email before just to make sure. Like the one it's tomorrow morning in Utah at 9. It was already full last week because I tried to go speak. But just as long as you get people you know that will go up there and speak, even if they'll just open up their mouth and let the words come out, God will give you the words. This is like literally righteous indignation. And these people need to be told what we feel. And if enough of us do it, I mean, here's the deal. Let's say they don't listen. What happens? We unseat them. They will not hold office again. And if we need to press charges, that's what's going to happen as well.
You mentioned they were breaking the law. In what way are they doing that?
So I've got a bunch of things to read through, but just one simple way is the Constitution of Utah and the Education Code itself states that parents are in charge of their children's education and that these agencies are there to implement that. Okay? So then if you have, do you have that slideshow? Could you show a page for me real quick?
Yeah.
Is that a,
Okay.
okay, so that was just the cover. So go ahead to the next one, a parent-based perspective. So we made sure this is about parents. And then I just said, this is our mission statement. You can read through it later, so you can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we just said, this is what we're trying to do. Parents should be prioritized partners, not barriers, which is what the rule is talking about, is barriers. That is teacher speak for parents. So that was a problem. Kids are being used. You know that. Kids are being used for this agenda. We will not stand for that. And educators need to stay in their lane. They are not hired to do what they're doing right now. Okay, so the next one. I think it should be then. Yeah, so here's the law that I was talking about. And just to highlight, parents have the primary responsibility. And then at the bottom it says, this is their job. They're supposed to respect, protect, and further the interest of who? Parents, not special interest groups or unions, and promote active engagement of parents at schools. That's not happening either. So do you think that they're either ignorant or are they, what do you think? So if you keep moving forward, I'll show you what happens. Okay, so there were no parent groups asked anything about drafting this rule. So go to the next one. So the state board has this advisory committee, and notice how it's arranged. It's arranged by race.
Yeah. American Indian, African American, Black,
And
Asian
if you
American.
look at the bottom, so Jeffrey Van Holten is on the USBE staff, Utah School Board staff.
Mm-hmm.
And he helps them with this, and then they take what they come up with to the board. The board has nothing to do with this sort of thing, but neither do parents. I do know some of the members on this advisory team, and one happens to be a UEA union state director that flies to NEA twice a month. These people are special interest groups. Again, not parents with student interest only.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest thing. Find out who is running the show and expose it and get rid of it, or at least put something together to a solution. Like give them a parent group, like help them come up with something, because it seems to us they're breaking the law and they seem to know it.
Oh yeah. It should be run by parent committees, not special interest
Not
groups.
by race, and they're all involved in, like, there's one, the director of Multicultural and Diversity Council of Utah, or that's who these people are.
And these people aren't elected by the parents. They're not even something they vote for.
Exactly. And the staff isn't either. The staff is hired by the superintendent, and that's a whole other discussion for another day. But then you can go to the next one. I think it's just a couple more things. So this is what the actual House and Senate asked them to do. And so we called them out and said, no, the rule didn't ask you to go into CRT. It asked you to make sure you're teaching on moral character, that it's not by race. That's all they asked. Okay, go to the next one.
I can see how they manipulate that by saying, well, we're trying to teach moral character, but
Mhm.
ultimately they're manipulating.
Exactly.
They're teaching racism.
Well, and it says the rule establishes and promotes equity as its focus instead of individual children's best interests and like strengths.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bringing out the best in each kid. They want to make sure equity is talked about, which equity, it means the same outcome, and that's not that's not biologically like that's just not how things work for humans.
Right.
And then the rule doesn't even match what they were asked to do. And our biggest thing is there's no parent involvement. It's a race-based advisory committee. And then I think the next one, and this is important and this is what we told them, we want them to redraft it
Mm-hmm.
with parent groups and keep the focus on what they were asked to do, which is diminish division and promote unity, which is the only thing they were asked to do, not put in all the verbiage about LGBTQ and all this other stuff that's included. And then go to the next one. So parents need to understand this is who is involved in your child's curriculum and development training for their students. Is this something that you're okay with? And if you're
And they
not,
use all these words that just are
yes,
so manipulative, like social justice.
yeah, and they take a word, and I don't know where I wrote it down, but I got it's a word that experts in this use to get around it, and it's something about tax psychological taxonomy or something where they'll use a word and then actually change the meaning slightly, so people think it's good, but it's actually not.
Yeah.
It's like lipstick on a pig, right? Like that's what people say.
Totally.
Where's the parent involved in this wheel? Where there's no parent.
Right.
Cool.
And it's all psychology. They're trying to push theories and
All
psychology on our kids all day long.
Yes. And it's
And
not the
division.
place or time,
And
especially K6, K8, or even K12.
yeah, because they're trying to figure out who they are. I mean, they're starting to develop their
Exactly.
ego. They're starting to develop insecurities. They're starting to
Yes.
be hard on
And
each other, hard on themselves. The last thing they need is
is
division.
baggage like this. Well, and
Labeling.
all these things are important. I understand that, but it's just age appropriateness and who determines what's age appropriate. And if we can't figure out who determines that, then it should not be allowed in our classrooms.
Right.
And then I think there was one other thing that my one of my board members, this is what we expect by them. We want objective subjects and curriculum, reading, writing, arithmetic, not some subjectivity that kids don't know anything about before
Right.
abstract thought even starts in a 10 to 12-year-old brain. Acknowledge differences and commonalities of people without being divisive. Respect boundaries between a student's public and private life. And they have to prioritize outreach to parent groups going forward. And we're now in contact with them on making sure they do, because we're not just going to say that and let it go.
What do these stand for? USBE?
Utah State Board of Education and local education agencies. So like a school district or a building. It doesn't matter however you want to use it.
Okay.
So the state board and the districts, they must, because they do not actively let parents know how they can get involved, and that's against the law.
Interesting.
And they've done it for so long. We've just trusted for too long.
Yeah. Well, you're brave. I mean, I'm scared to even walk down and face my own PTA, PTO, let alone going after people that, you have worked with in the past. You're going up against the system itself.
My first time the union confronted me, the guy that was my chair for the DIM party, he's the lobbyist for UEA. He stopped me in the hall after I spoke to the education committee, which has two of my colleagues on there, former colleagues. And he told me to shut it down and that I was making false assertions. And I held up a Marxist training book I received at a summer academy from UEA. And I said, but you are.
It's an indoctrination camp.
He stopped. He couldn't. He asked me for all my electronic and physical files from my days of. It had been a year. I don't talk to I just completely disengaged because the threats were just, I got real good at blocking. I got real good at not caring, and because I know what I have to do. And like you said, it's scary. When I went and spoke that day, I didn't know how I was going to do it. My co-chair was sitting behind me because he's a lobbyist, so he's always there. And there's a senator and rep that used to be my mentor sitting right here, and I approached the bench. And I told them the Democrat Party and union have too much control. And I called on parents and teachers to start standing up and speaking out against this. And I couldn't even get I prayed, God, just let me say the words. And I ripped the Band-Aid off, and I'm good now. And I will go down. This is the hill I die on. I need people to know this is how it trickles through. The union keeps the legislators' hands clean because they use it through their trainings, but they're not elected. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And where are the parents? So parents, I would just say, you don't even need to call the governor. I would start local as possible, unless you're like me and just are comfortable, because that's what I did.
Well, let's
I was
back
at
up
the Capitol.
actually. Let's
Yeah,
back up actually. So I feel like the parents that are as passionate as you should reach out to you, and we should
yeah,
get, a national kind of effort happening here so that
yes,
they feel supported and
I
that
would
they can
love that.
share success stories and that they can,
Yes,
have that open dialogue with you. Here's how it's working out in Colorado. Here's how it is in Utah. Here's how it is in Arizona. This is what's working for us, right?
yes,
And then here's how we're getting organized, and maybe even start that directory so that if you are in a certain area, that we've got some people you can reach out to start forming groups with and
mhm,
becoming active. I even have a very close girlfriend who's wide awake. We kind of woke up together this last 2 years, and
mhm,
now that we
yeah,
really are so aware of what's going on in the school, she used to be a gym teacher, so she understands the school, and she was asked to run the PTO, but because she is awake and she's very conservative, they bullied her out, and she decided, I just don't have time in my life for this. I've got
Can
young
I
children.
can I piggyback on that real quick?
Yeah.
So PTO, PTA, okay? One of AIM's goals, first of all, national, you totally get what I'm doing here. Like,
Mhm.
that's everything you've said is my mission and my calling. So thank you for seeing that.
Yeah.
Secondly, what we love is an AIM liaison in every school building.
Yeah.
And if teachers or students, students feel bullied or not okay to just leave the class and go tell someone, principals aren't very sympathetic. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
They're not always the nicest people. Um, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But if there's some way that what we're doing is looking to get out somehow, like a PTA almost, to be a resource, teacher wants to come and say, how can I get out of this? We're going to go, we got you.
Yeah.
Let me go get this group, because they vet teachers like you. If you want out, we got you. We've got a town that wants you. They'll help you. Towns are looking for people to actual fund, like old school style, and pick a teacher for their town.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time is now.
I think so. I think people are awake. They're ready for change. They're ready to do something about it. We're all in this. I think a lot of people feel like they're in a holding pattern, but we're not. School is starting. The enemy's not going to stop.
Yes, and school's starting, and here's a couple things. So because school's starting, I don't know what state are you in again? You're
Arizona. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
So Utah legislative session, so our Congress and House, or House and Senate start like January 24th ish, or somewhere around there, through like mid to late March. It's very short. I think it's 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
One of the shortest in the nation. I don't know how every state is, but I will tell you right now, for a couple weeks, they've already started working on session stuff for January. So there's a couple things we want to do. We're going to get together and have a pre-legislative type of thing where we can do Zoom or whatever and teach people. I used to train lobbyists. I used to go up and meet people in the Capitol and teach them how to do it, how to share your story, how to do an ask, how to meet with your Congress people. So looking ahead, that's one thing they can do is, start, if they want to run for city council, local school boards, just start even thinking about it, or thinking to ask someone, because sometimes you just need to be asked and you'll say yes.
Mm-hmm. And you just need a group of other people.
Yeah.
You just need the support of others. So you probably have a Telegram channel set up. We can link below. And
Yes.
people can share videos of success stories of their child walking up and speaking at one of these committee meetings.
Yes.
One question I have.
Yeah.
One question I have, which might be a stupid question, I don't know, is who is at these committee meetings? Like, who's hearing the committee meetings? Is it is it a board member? Is it a board leader? Is it a president? And what if they don't make any changes after the presentations? What do we do?
Okay. So that's what tomorrow's about. Tomorrow's going to be interesting at the state board, because after our agenda thing, it could go one of two ways. Three. They could either just scratch it all, no one wants it. Number two, redraft it, but they better have a parent group. Like that's, or they pass it as it is and it becomes law for the school year. So we will pack the house tomorrow. They started at 9, public comment at 9:30. Supposedly a couple of us didn't get in because it was full, but then we know some people who did. So I think they might be picking and choosing who they're allowing to speak
Mhm.
now. But if anyone's wanting to get involved, you really have to be fearless. That's all I can say. If it takes your mama bear instincts to come out and do this,
Mhm.
that's what's going to take, because you're going to get doxxed, you're going to get threatened. But what's more important, you might lose your job. I'm not kidding. It's not easy work. The
Mhm.
level that we're finding this corruption and actually not just teaching parents what's happening, but we're going to them.
Mhm.
It's scary,
Yeah.
and we need a certain type of person, and that's just personal choice if you want to be that person or not, you know.
Yeah.
But it takes both sides. But my
Yeah.
side is that's what we're doing. Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people that are ready to get right behind you, girl. I'm really
Yeah.
proud of you, and I'm
I
really
think so too.
excited about what you're doing. I can't wait to follow and
Yeah.
hear
You
all about
know,
it. I think I should have you with me like every month or something to tell me
they'll
your
do
progress and
updates. Yeah.
success
We'll do
stories. And
updates. Well, and I wanted to go national, and I wasn't sure how, and you just, yeah, it all worked out.
and we hope
Yeah, I
all
think
parents get involved, not just the moms. Okay,
no,
not just the
any
mom. We need now.
community members, yeah, anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, find your legislators that are on your side. They are there. You've just got to really, you don't know who to trust for a while, you know, just be strategic about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love for anyone to contact me. We can talk on Telegram. There's the chat, you know, the comment section there's an option for that. And then we can private message if we need to. But yeah, I think we're going to do a lot, and I'm going to die trying.
I know, right? Well, do you want to make any final comments for the audience today before we wrap up?
No, I think just the fact that one important thing that I'm doing this for is because I haven't seen anyone from the left defect like I have and speak out in this specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm reading books on leadership. I'm trying to do this right, but I'm the real deal. I was trained by the best on the left, and I want to help, you know, you learn how to do it. And let's join together as Americans and save our country and save the rest of our future for our children.
Absolutely. You know, I'm in the same boat. We're all just working moms. We're all
Right.
just trying to become the news. We're trying to become who we're meant to be, right? And it's like, so
Right.
whoever you are, you don't need to have some, you know, past experience with this stuff. You just need to care. That's it. You just have to
I'll
care.
help you. You don't need any experience. I'll walk you through whatever you need. If you don't want to talk to me, talk to somebody else, but just do something.
You don't need even to be a public speaker. You need to find the person in your community that's willing to fight with you. That's it. You know, it's like, just have faith that you can make a difference.
Yep. And people will be brought to you that you need.
Absolutely.
Once you have faith, they come.
God is moving his pieces in place, and we are infiltrating the darkness. We're bringing light.
We are disruptors, and we are shining light, and darkness does not understand the light. And that's okay, but we know what we have to do, and we're walking in truth.
Well, dark can't survive in the light, right? And I remember learning, this is just something we'll leave with, but like we were talking about the pyramid, and all it takes is a few parents at the bottom to start turning the opposite way, the cogs the opposite way of the machine. You know what I mean? It doesn't take much to disrupt. Even if you get knocked down, keep getting back up. Even if you're not hurt a few times, you'll just get better and better, or you'll grow a larger group.
Lick your wounds. Don't take things personally. There's a lot of egos at this level, a lot. You got to look past that. It's not a personality contest or ego. It's about the kids, and it's about our rights and keeping our rights. We don't want to be China. We don't want to be, you know, Venezuela. Let's be Americans and take our country back. And this is what we have to do.
I love it. Jessica, it was such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Have me back anytime. Okay. Thank you.
Love it. All right, girl. We'll talk soon.